there's one other piece that I want to, Robert, do you want to try to answer? Why is this piece important? There's one piece that I'm really trying to get to, and I'm not going to keep you on the hook too long here, but just
to explain their story and how they told it.
Well, I want to go beyond that. That's definitely the history part. No question, that's true. But what I want you to come away with is this is the beginning of Western literature. All right, this is really the first piece of what is traditionally called Western literature. From this point forward, anything literature in the West is going to be a part of this tradition, you know, down right to the present day, you know, depending on how you look at that. I have one final question, and then I think we'll go ahead and take about a 5-minute break. My question is, how has this piece impacted the West and the world, really, in a sense? How has this piece impacted the West and the world? Some thoughts on that? And Robert, you're certainly welcome to chime in on that as well at this point. So, what do you think? What's the impact? We've got to make these connections, right, to the modern world. Otherwise, history is useless if we can't make an impact to where we're at, in some sense. Any thoughts? I mean, certainly we can say, okay, it's the beginning of a Western literary tradition. Okay, that's reasonable. I think that's a reasonable connection in some sense. But what else? Think about popular culture, even.
I think probably the Greek gods and goddesses are like the most popular in terms of like our modern day. Like we can name most of them.
Mm-hmm. Why can we name most of them?
I think because of like stories like this that have been continued to be taught through schools. You're just like sort of name recognition familiar.
Yeah.
They're also like popular, like Percy Jackson, that whole series.
Yeah, Percy Jackson. Has anybody read a Percy Jackson novel?
I watched it.
All of you did? I'm the only one who hasn't. No, but I know my kids are crazy Percy Jackson fans. So, yeah, I mean, that kind of stuff. But it's not just that. I mean, that's a relatively recent novel thing. Every year or two in Hollywood, every few years, they come out with some new take on some aspect of this, right? You know, with Medusa's in there and all kinds of other, that's more the Odyssey, right, than this one. But it's still the same kind of, you know, it's kind of fleshing out the gods and the goddesses and all that kind of thing, and the myth that comes with the Greeks. Do you see any other way this piece has impacted the West, other than just kind of bringing the, you know, the myth and keeping it in our conscience?
To glorify the Greek Empire.
Ooh, yeah, that's an interesting one. How do you see that?
That's kind of what I was gonna, it sounds like propaganda where it's
Yeah.
like, wow, like look how powerful this person was that like, you know, could defeat armies with like the help of the gods, like they were rooting for him.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. I mean, you definitely get a sense that, you know, I'm intended to win this war, right, in some sense. And that's maybe a little bit of the eliteness, you know, or the you know, the self-centeredness possibly of Greek culture as well, I guess you could say.
They're buddies. The gods and them are buddies.
Yeah, it also presents a pantheon of gods and goddesses that are very human-like, right, in a sense. In fact, more like little children that have their candy stolen sometimes, you know, very capricious, and they're more than willing to jump in and slap somebody around, you know, to move this thing in the direction they want to go in, that kind of thing. And that's very good, because that's very much the Greek way of looking at things. As we've already mentioned, there's an awful lot of slaves in Rome. All right, so this is a difficult belief structure to hold. Now, there's Zeno. The Romans come in and they just make it more political, ethical, and religious. They emphasize the duty and the self-discipline, the acceptance of the order of the universe. It spreads to the commoners during the Pax Romana. In fact, Seneca, the philosopher Seneca, who is the tutor of Nero, of all people, is one of the individuals responsible for the spreading of this particular belief structure, this philosophy. And then Cicero comes along. He writes On the Ends of Good and Evil, is another famous Stoic, if you would. and a Roman Stoic. And then as you move into the 2nd century, probably the most important Stoic is Marcus Aurelius during one of the Antonines, one of the good emperors in the 2nd century. He's kind of the height. He writes Meditations, which is kind of like a handbook for Stoicism in that way. So with that in mind, I want to take a look at this Stoicism for a second. And the way I'm going to do it is through a video. Before the video, though, I want you to take a look at these questions here. And I want you to jot them down. You don't need to write an extensive list here. Just jot a couple down as you go. What do you see as a positive in Stoicism? What do you see as a negative in Stoicism? In other words, we want to make the jump from ancient Rome to the modern day. What can we take away from Stoicism that could be seen as positive? And this is your opinion, right? We can't say that there's a definitive here, all right? So it's what you think. What do you see as positive? And then what do you see as negative out of Stoicism? All right, so keep those questions, and right afterwards we'll just take a minute or two and see what your thoughts are on that. All right, so stick with this, and we can talk about that in just a minute.
This is a film about Stoicism and why you need more of it in your life, because, as people seldom tell you, but we will, quietly, Stoicism was a philosophy that flourished for 480 years and it simply said, what need is there to weep over parts of life? The whole of it calls for tears. We have much to learn from the Stoics.
All right, so let's talk Stoics a little bit here. So what are the positives? What do you see as positives that come out of Stoicism, this idea? Yeah, what do you think?
Helps with anxiety, and they look on the bright side.
Look, okay, so it helps you get past anxiety in a particular moment, helps you look on the bright side. How do you see them helping you look on the bright side?
They say like everything's gonna be okay, like no matter what you go through.
Yeah, okay, so there's nothing that bad, right? Ultimately, no matter how bad it is, you're still there, right? Yeah, ultimately, so I don't know. I can see that possibly being any other positives? Yeah.
There's kind of like relief in knowing that like things are already decided for you, and whatever happens is going to happen anyway, so like what does it matter your choices?
Yeah, that's an excellent way to put it. Any other positive? And in a sense, that would be relief because it takes the pressure off of you, right, in a sense. All right. Yeah.
They encourage like education.
Encourage education. All right, that's good. All right, that's true.
It discourages it's like anger, like negative emotions, so it kind of lets you make rational decisions in your life.
All right, so it discourages negative emotions taking over your actions, right, in a sense. All right, that's good.
Irrational arguments.
Irrational arguments. Okay, explain what you mean.
Civilized arguments.
Okay, so it promotes civilized argument. All right, in a sense, I could definitely see that. Yeah.
Happiness is easier to achieve because it like requires just accepting everything that happens in your life.
Yeah.
Like you don't have to go out of your way to feel happy because just whatever happens should make you feel happy.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to look at it. All right, so let's flip the coin. What negatives did you see out of it? What negatives do you see coming out of Stoicism?
They promote hopelessness.
What do you mean? Can you explain? I mean, I'm not disagreeing with you. I just want to hear what you're saying.
Well, they're pretty much saying don't hope because they'll make you like dream or like bring you up, so it doesn't bring you down. They show that person like falling.
So if you don't hope, you can't possibly tank, kind of
So
like.
it's pretty much taking like it's very realistic, but I think it takes away certain like joys or like really like these like human things that whatever. But yeah.
Okay, well that's fair. That's reasonable.
I'll like to add on that when they talked about how like preparing for the worst, as in like stripping up like into like bad clothing and like just eating stale bread and rainwater,
Yeah.
like that kind of just like surviving like that. That's like that takes away your like what makes you human kind of.
Oh, yeah, I think that's exactly what she's saying too, yeah, in a different way, absolutely. So it's kind of taking away what you understand humanity to be, in a sense, possibly, okay.
So being angry with being stupid.
Okay, being angry is equivalent to being stupid, all right, that's true.
It promotes like catastrophizing, because it's like, you don't have control over what happens, so you need to expect anything to happen, which I think would cause more anxiety for me, because it's like, you keep going down these paths of like, well, this could happen, and then if that happens, this could happen, and I think that would drive me crazy.
That's interesting, catastrophizing. That's I like the way you put that. Did you appreciate Seneca's perspective on any situation that gets too far gone? You know, it's just too difficult. Turn your wrists over and kill yourself. No, he's saying it seriously. I mean, that's not a joke. It's really what he's saying. Yeah, I mean, he's not. Does anybody have an issue with that?
No.
You think that's an acceptable approach? If things get difficult enough?
I guess if you're
frowned
stoic,
upon.
it's like, well, that's what's just gonna happen anyway, like, I'll die, I guess, and then that was just your path to kill yourself.
You take the coward's way out.
I don't think so.
Okay, go ahead. So, I'm just curious, 'cause, yeah.
I mean, if I'm thinking of some of my friends that are suicidal or like have
Mhm.
serious, or diagnosed with depression, I don't think them trying to kill themselves is something they want, but something they like feel has to happen, so I don't think that like they usually like call someone or something because they don't want it to happen, so I don't think that, well, you can kill yourself, like, it promotes suicide, I don't.
You're gonna die one day, just live it out.
Yeah, but why is life should be beautiful, life should, you should have meaning, so this idea of like, well, you should just kill yourself, it's kind of like, well, I think that promotes then the hopelessness, and then it's like, well, then why should any of us live, like,
Well,
what's the point?
they went through tougher times.
No,
Well, I mean,
I just think it's like, I think we have like a more fundamental understanding of like mental health and the way to improve that and the psychology of it, and I think that when things are just, oh, we have like one God that like determines our fate, or many gods or whatever, I think it's like, we are not in control of our life, like in the same way that we are now. Like back then it was just like we are at the mercy of whatever our path is.
No, yeah, I
Now
get
it's
that.
like very different, and I think that that's like why that thing doesn't work now, because it's like we are in control of our own destinies is the way that we look at it today.
Gee, and there's a whole question I'd love to pursue there with you, but for sake of time, we're not going to. The question of whether we're in control of our life today.
I
Anyways,
think that's the way that we like to
Right.
look at it, whether
I
or not
agree.
we are.
I think you're 100% right, absolutely. Any other thoughts on this? I'm just presenting Stoicism to you very briefly, clearly. We could go and, whole classes are taught on this, obviously, but I just want you to get a sense of this one. One thing that I saw as a criticism of it was of the dehumanizing, right? That's kind of what I saw, I think, I heard from both of you, is kind of a dehumanizing of people, of human beings, right? What we believe them to be as humans. And I'm not suggesting that this is definitely true, but that might be very much a result of Judeo-Christianity in the future, in the sense, because especially as you look to the Christian humanists, for instance, of the late medieval era, they talk about this imago Dei, right? Made in the image of God. That means human beings have an innate value, right? That if you hit against it, that's a problem, right? Because any human being has this innate value. That and the Stoics, those two are not going to correspond very well. There's going to be conflict there. And I'm not suggesting that definitely is, but that probably comes from some of that thought in that sense. Anyways, I don't want to go into the philosophy of it too much, but it's very interesting to look at Stoicism. And it's extremely important, especially in the first couple of centuries.